Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Excalibur Data Systems Roundtable Tech Talk. I am Mike Fuson, and I'm joined by one of the most handsome and my favorite people from across the pond, Gianmarco Rubino. Gianmarco, I'm going to rename you all of a sudden. Gianmarco, how are you doing?
Hi, Mike. Yeah, thanks. Very well. I'm blushing already. It's already starting the roundtable and getting a bit red, but it's good. No pressure.
Yeah, so Gianmarco and I love to get together and talk about the wild and crazy things they've got going on over there at Halo. For those of you that have followed some of our videos, their constant innovation is happening all the time. There's new features, large and small, being introduced. But one of the things that we wanted to get together and talk about is kind of a big deal feature that has come to Halo to help customers be able to move their changes very easily between the various environments. So, as most of us know, best software development lifecycle practices for big things that we're doing, we do it in development, and then we move those changes into the production environment. So we have a chance to test them, validate them, tweak them, whatever we need to do to them, and move them into production. And that's something that's a challenge for a lot of organizations, and a lot of the platforms that are out there. How do we move these changes from one environment to another? And we as partners got kind of a preview of it, and I said, "Oh, we've got to get this out there and show people what you guys have been up to," because Halo took it a step further, where really understanding what actually happens for real in customer environments. While bigger things, organizations follow best practices for the most part. There are a lot of times small changes that need to occur, and they are put directly into production. And all of a sudden, you start getting environments that are out of sync. They don't have the same stuff in them. And so you guys kind of took an approach of, well, when you do that, you can also push it down to your development environment to get things synced back up, so stuff's not missing. And you even added some error checking stuff. So rather than me talking all about it, because I get all excited about this stuff, I think it's so cool. Some of the things you guys think of that I'm like, wow, if we could just do this, that'd be great. And then you guys debut it, and you would not only put out what people are looking for, but have kind of thought about, well, here's how people would really use it. And so we've added a few additional things to it to make it very, very usable. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Gianmarco, and show us and tell us a little bit about what you guys have done.
Sure. As you know, I think the best way to run this is pretty much a live demo, demonstration and explanation of how the feature works, how we thought about it. So I'm going to start showing my screen. One of the most important things here I want to say is that we should think of this feature not only as a way of pushing changes, right? But we should be thinking about this also as a way to track changes, right? So I'm going to start with sharing my screen, and I've got two different environments on screen. I've got my production environment, put them in different colors. It's blue, Halo blue, the best blue. And then I've got a UAT environment in yellow. The URL is slightly different. There's UAT at the end. At the moment, the instances are pretty much in sync, right? As you said in your introduction, your Halo administrators sometimes will want to make a quick change with minor impact, right? Straight into production that doesn't need testing. It can be something like, turning on a module, right? You can turn on software releases, right? We're just turning it on. We're not configuring anything, right? Turning it back off. Or it can even be something like changing an individual global setting, going into tickets and saying that, before working on the ticket, you want to change the organization on that ticket. That's just a global setting, right? Before we even look at pushing that into production, we go into our advanced setting in our config console. And what we're able to do is we're able to see an audit of all the configuration changes, right? So we can see on here every change. Here I've done two. It's 224 across the pond, like you say, and I've done two changes. I've turned the module number 60 on, turn it off, and I also update our global setting. If I click on it, it will tell me what setting it is, and how to roll it back. So it gives me rollback options, right, where basically everything done before this change is rolled back. Right? So this is basically a way of, without even looking, before we even start looking at pushing between different environments, is a way to actually add more options on how to own, manage, and maintain your configuration. Okay? So let's start with this, and let's just say that, you know, we want to add an email template, right? Because we need just a standard email template. We want to change the way we send emails to approvers, right? So we're gonna create a new approver email. Okay, not something that we need to test. We know exactly what we need to send to our approvers. So I'm just going to go and create it quickly. Click here to accept. Not very real life here. We're not giving them an option to reject or anything, but just want to give you a quick demonstration, right? And let's say that we save this new email template, then we realize that we don't like it at all, we delete it, we're not going to apply it to anything, right? And we create a new one that's fancier, right? We go and get the standard approval message, we copy this as a starting point, and we just change the wording. Maybe we realize that this is a better way of doing it, right? And we just say, please review the below approval. Okay, we just saved this. This creates a new approval message. Now, if one of our processes needs to use this approval message, we don't want to build the process in a UAT environment where that message doesn't exist, right? So what do? We go into the instances area of configuration, right? And we can see that our UAT environment is 10 changes behind, right? Because what I've been doing right now is making changes straight in production, right? So I click on the UAT environment, right? And I can see that I can already push all my changes to UAT, right? Why is that? Because, you know, I might want to build a more complex situation that I need to test. I need to, you know, it might take me various days. And I want to make sure that I start with the 2 instances in sync so I can use everything that I've built in production. And more importantly, when I push it back, because I want to go live with that process, right, I want to make sure that that's not going to cause any problems. Right, so it's kind of, again, best practice, and it's very simple, right? Because what do we do here? We push our changes to UAT. And another quite important thing here is that it is not going to be able to push everything to UAT, right? The main reason being that I deleted something, I deleted an email template that doesn't exist in UAT. So it's going to show me the error, it's going to show you the GUID of the error, right? When it's saying that this is not possible. It starts with I1D1. Right, I'm going to find what that error is, right? And basically it's going to allow me, if I go into UAT, it's going to allow me to pull everything apart from that, right? So it's going to pull everything apart from that error. So I go into the instances on here, I'll go into production, and I see it's changes ahead, right? And I can say pull from production as well, right? So that will allow me to start from a clean state again, right? So yeah, if I go into the config changes on here, right, I can also see how to export just one change, right? So say we want to export a very specific creation of an email template, right? And this is the only thing we want to export. We click on here, we edit, we export it, saves a text file, and that text file specifically we can just import into UAT, right? So there's a few things that can be done really to you know, to say start from a clean state or have everything you need, right? So this is you know, the starting point, right? The next thing is instead going into UAT and actually building a process, something more complex, something that isn't as straightforward. So it will require you to create different entities, right? Say for example we go and configure, right, an organization, and we want to create a new department, right? When we go and create a new department, firstly, whatever you're doing, it will visually tell you whether this is something that's tracked. This change tracking icon on the top right is telling you what you're doing. You're not going to lose. You can push to production. It's something that, you know, you will keep and you will be able to maintain, right? So starting point. Going to create, for example, a finance department here, right? Say we want to create a finance a finance catalog with an example offering, right? Going to create a finance department, and we're going to create a finance team as well. So you can see change tracking on here is also enabled, so it will allow me to do that as well. Let's add one of our team members to finance. It doesn't really matter who it is, just let's make it a bit more real, right? And again, that will be tracked, and it will allow you to be pulled as well, right? So we're going to save those changes. What we're going to do next is we're going to create a very, very standard finance form. Don't want to go into too much details, but to create a form, we need fields, right? So let's just create a standard field to say finance system access, right? And say finance system access level. It's going to create a very simple drop down, right? Let's say read only, read and modify, and admin access, right? Something fairly simple, just created a field to make sure we copy the values. If it has child tickets, something very standard, and we have a standard field created as well. Now the next thing, now that we have an extra field, is let's go and configure a form, right? So we go into our ticket types. We already will have a form for example, ERP access request, right? Let's just clone it, make it quicker, call it finance access request, right? This is going to create a new form. We're going to change a few things, right? Different approval process, right? Let's say it just follows the standard service request approval process. And let's also say that we're going to, once we set this up, we also want to send it to finance team because we just created this team specifically for this. And also, remove this form and create a completely different form where we have the field we just added and a justification, right? Why do you need access to the finance system? Make this fields mandatory as well. And we're creating all of this in UAT, right? Our users that are currently accessing the portal, and this is all live and stuff, they won't see this, they won't see the offering on the portal until we push it. So it gives us some flexibility as to how to build and hide without having to think about, oh, how have I hidden it the right way? Can they see it? No, this is just UAT, no one's accessing UAT, it's completely separated, right? So we now have a form, we have some fields. What we need to do is we need to create the offering. So we go into the services area. We don't even really have an area for finance, so we could create a new service category. Again, this is tracked, so when I create that, we'll be able to push it across, right? I'm just going to call it finance. Fairly straightforward. I'm not going to spend time adding icons. It might not look as fancy, but it doesn't really matter. And here I'm going to call it finance system, right? And I'm going to add the ability to request a service item, right, from this service. So we already have the finance access request form. I'm just going to configure it so when you request this service, it uses that form. I'm going to save all of this, right? And now I have my UAT self-service portal, right, that I can access and have a look at what the portal looks like, right? And once I go into the portal and request something, I can see my new finance category. Of course, this wouldn't be ready to be published. I want to make it look nice. I want to add a logo. That will also, of course, be tracked. But just as a starting point, we can see my form in UAT. I can even log a standard ticket, make sure that it follows the workflow properly, right? Just log it as a test. We'll have our emails not actually going to end users because we have a test mailbox. So that will be completely different, right? And that service request would have now landed into our service request queue in here. Oh, no, it's actually on the finance queue. That's why I can't see it, because I haven't added myself to the finance team. But we have that example ticket created. I'll probably, the thing I'll do is, as an admin, I'll just search the ID, just so I can see that the ticket has come through, right? Which you can see on here. It started the approval process. Has a certain SLA, it's awaiting approval. It's gone to the finance team, as expected. That's what we want, right? If we accept the request, I've added myself as the approver, as a standard, then what will happen here is that we'll have all our different actions, the workflow is being followed properly, and let's assume we've already done the aesthetics as well, and we're ready to push this to production, right? Say we've done a few more tests, we've done the whole flow, right? This is pretty much ready to go, right? So what we can do is we can see that on here, if we go into the instances, right, production is 8 changes behind. What are those 8 changes? Added a department, added a team, edited the team that I added a custom field, ticket type, service category, and a service, right? 8 changes that constitute the creation of a process that I have tested, that I'm happy to deploy, right? Push this to production. It's going to give me some examples, and those changes are slowly being applied through. It's going to check for conflicts like we saw before. There's no conflicts in this case. I didn't delete anything or didn't use anything. Let's go into production, right? Let's say this is all ready. Let's go into the portal in production, which is obviously different than user portal. This is what our user base will be using, and you can see the exact same form. You can see the new field, right? No need to copy across. This is just a caching element. The only problem with this unknown string is because I'm using it on the same device. Our end users will not be seeing this. If I do a quick refresh, that will actually fix that visual glitch. Just going to do it a bit deeper than I thought. There we go. Let's kill a cache. Anyway, apart from this small technical difficulty, I think that the main thing here to understand is how you can actually empower your admins to not have to worry about testing live or, not being able to do anything in production, right? They can do BAU stuff in production and at the same time make the major enhancements to the service offerings in UAT with their own set of testing without, affecting the user base and without, creating any noise. So yeah, that's the way we thought of this. We can talk a bit about the technicalities, how it works in the back end, but in terms of the use case, I think we've covered the main things. One more thing I'm going to say is pretty much everything on the config side will have that change tracking entity. When you're in general settings, it will show you that it's tracked, ticket types. So it is absolutely everything, apart from tickets, of course, because you don't want to push across test ticket data. So I'll pass it back to you, Mike. Any comments, any questions that you think?
I think this is exciting because what it does, it gives the flexibility for an organization to operate however they operate. We have customers that are very, very strict in their configuration process. So, okay, but you always have the challenge has always been you have those situations where something needs to be done in production, and it's done quickly because it's a low risk. So you thought something's found to be misspelled or what have you, and you don't have to go through a full process in order to do that. You can fix it and then immediately push it down to your UAT or development environment and have that. And this is not limited to just 2 environments. So an organization that might have multiple environments, you can move things between the different environments. They can all be linked together. Now, the linking portion is something that Halo does for us as a customer. We make the request to have the systems linked. In most cases, that's going to happen at start, when we first implement the system. But even existing customers that have been around for a while can make the request to have this new feature enabled and have the systems linked together and be able to then leverage the capabilities that are out there. And this, as with so many things with Halo, this is the first step of this technology, of this feature, and through the customer the customer community, as folks find different things that they may want, Halo is going to be paying attention to that. We may see this capability evolve in different ways depending upon what the customers find that the needs are. I think it's exciting to see this feature that's very straightforward come to the table. And the funny thing is you look at it and you went through it and click and push the button and poof, it all happens. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the background. This was not something that was streamed up and somebody put this together in a week. This has taken some time to put together, as you guys do with so many things. Pretty much everything Halo does, there's a lot of thought and effort put into it to make sure that it's going to work in a fashion that makes sense for the majority of the customers. There will be customers where this feature or a feature or function doesn't apply, and that's the beauty of Halo, right? You buy the system, and you have these capabilities, and customers that don't want to leverage this don't have to. But why wouldn't you, right? This makes life so much easier for customers.
I think a very important thing to say, sorry to interrupt you there, is that, like you say, we're an all-in-one, all-inclusive ITSM platform, and customers are very surprised when they go like, oh, what's the, what do we have to pay to have this on? And it's, no, all customers, they do get a UAT environment, right? So this is part of Halo's standard offering. Of course, like you said, it did take some development effort and things like that, but to us, it's enhancing the offerings for our customers on how they can improve the management of their processes. So it's not like this is an upsell opportunity. We're just really trying to give and empower our customers and give them the ability to do everything you need to do. So you purchase Halo, you get 2 environments, they're linked together. That's how it is. You're an existing customer that wants to start using this. Just contact us. We'll get it sorted for you. It's not like we're trying to sell this. We're just trying to showcase how it can be useful for existing customers or customers that have issues managing their software development cycles with the current solutions, and we want to offer an alternative. And the other thing, I think you made a very, very important point there. I did showcase 2 instances connected only. Reason being, it's way simpler. We don't go down too much of a complexity route, but it does allow for 3 different instances being connected together. Usually we'll go with, staging, UAT, and production, right? And you could even say that staging is where you do the testing and UAT is where you do the config, or you could do it in a different way, because you might say that you're building 2 different processes, 3 different processes at the same time. You build one on your staging and one on your UAT, depending on which one's more advanced, and then you push them one at a time. Right? You're not pushing everything. And that's something maybe I should have stressed a bit more when we're exporting changes. You can say, I only want to do the changes that this person is working on, which is finance, right? And I'm going to wait to push everything else, which is facilities, which is still, next sprint or next quarter. So we do definitely allow for that, either with multiple instances or even with just 2 instances, with just exporting and pushing very specific elements of the configuration. We want to make it as granular as possible, and I think that's what we wanted to present and what's the message.
Well, and that's something you make a good point. Something important to note is, there's the easy button of go ahead and push everything, but you can get very granular because you could have different development cycles going on. Hey, this is ready. We've filed our change request. This has been approved to be moved into production, but the finance team is still testing, or the facilities team is still testing their changes, and that may go in a different change request. So it's not the one thing you guys have thought of is it's not this is all you can do. Any changes you've made, you've got to push. You can get very granular and decide what is being pushed, and there are the ability to really control then what's being pushed. One of the things that you noted in the call you had with the partners that I think is really important is you may get one of those errors and you're not sure what's going on or what you did. Halo support's there to help you out. They can take a look at it and figure out, okay, hey, what happened here and how can we help you work around the particular issue. The ability to push these changes previously could be done with support's assistance. They could push a bulk of changes up, knowing kind of the back end, the stuff that happens behind the curtain within these systems. But now it's bringing yet another feature forward, as we debuted in one of our last one of our previous episodes with reporting. Where there was help that could be offered by Halo, and now the need for that for the majority of situations has been removed, and the customers are able to service themselves. it's exciting.
I think another key example of that is, even say you don't actually want to push your changes across because there's too many, or you didn't have config tracking on. So for a customer that just wants to start this journey completely, right, what they can do is they can just ask to restore from production. This is not pushing changes. This is just saying UAT, clean state, copy the database over, right? Of course, it will do things like mailboxes being turned off, not emailing users, that whole layer of security for sure. But we're not saying just push all the changes that we've done today and make sure they're in sync. Start from scratch, right? Like UAT never existed, it's all in app, right? You have to submit a ticket kind of thing, bring up Halo support, or request help, or speak to your consultant. No, just one click from the user. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to be restored, but there is the ability to do that as well. And like you said, we just want to make sure that you should always have the option to contact us and to get help from us. But really, we want to ensure that that's something you should do only if you want to, right? We want to make it as simple as possible to be self-managed. We want to, be as fast as possible to add value to your organization without having to delay those timeframes or wait for things to be pushed or wait for our support to come back to you. You own your Halo, and you should be able to own it in a very efficient and quick and simple way.
Well, I'm sitting here chuckling internally because you're like, I've got this sort of production thing, not a real big deal. That's actually a huge thing, because what can happen in a lot of environments, and having been doing this, I've been doing this almost as long as poor Gianmarco's been alive. We see so often where you have like you talked about, a bigger effort, right? We see so often a bigger effort goes on, and then there's something else that usurps that, and the bigger effort is kind of partially done, and then you start on something else, and then they go, we decide we don't want to do that, and you've got all these changes you've made, and you're like, well, how do I get rid of all this stuff that we're now not doing and get this back to a stable state, so if I'm making changes, it's in sync with production? You guys did an easy button. I can now wipe the slate clean, make sure I'm in sync with production, and then as I'm making changes, I'm not more prone to getting all kinds of weird errors because I have no idea what changes have been pushed, because that happens in organizations, and it happens because there's too many things going on. It happens due to change of administrators, and the administrator was in the middle of something, and nobody's sure what's what. We want to be able to just get a clean slate and be able to then deliver what we want. So, a lot of thought was put into this. It's going to be exciting to see customers be able to leverage this and see what happens next with it as you get various customer feedback on things they may want to see. And that's the DNA of Halo, is what do the customers want, and then how can we deliver it to them. So excited to get together with you and be able to talk about these things and see the cool things. And this is something that is in the stable instance, is it not?
Definitely.
Has it been fully released?
In fact, we've received really good feedback from our biggest customers that have got it towards the beginning of this year and end of January, and start using it for their, as I said, continual improvement, adding new things and changing, and they said it's a massive time saver. They don't have the confidence to do it straight in production. They used to have to copy the config across. Yeah, it's changed their lives really, which is really good to hear. And I, again, probably, in a quick demo you can't really tell, but the other thing about this, the way we've built this, is that the conflict prevention is extremely strong. So we've decided to, maybe jeopardize the fact that sometimes the pushing will fail, right? Because there is a conflict, and therefore it won't push anything. What's the advantage though? This is bulletproof. It will never ever affect operations in production unless you've done it the proper way, right? And this is something that we've heard, and it can be a pain point when you're doing something, you think you've done it the right way, but you can't be sure, and you push it to production and it messes up something that was already configured. There's no chance that will ever happen with the way we've built this, because we've thought of the user comes first, operations come first. Enhancements are important and will help you push them quicker, but without affecting what's already there. So that whole thing was showed about, errors popping up and stuff. That's to preserve and ensure that your organization is not impacted by enhancements and changes you're making.
Fantastic. It's always fun to get together and talk about these exciting things. Gianmarco, thank you for joining me today and sharing what you guys are doing there at Halo and these exciting features that are available to customers and to our prospective customers that are out there. ExcaliburData.com, hit us up. We'd be happy to get you together with Gianmarco and the team at Halo and talk to you about what Halo can bring to your organization. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of an Excalibur Data Systems Tech Talk. Thanks, Gianmarco. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.